Now, for fresh updates and insights, we welcome to studio senior correspondent Guy Azriel. And Guy, you were at a special briefing earlier on this deal. We are hearing a range of reports, but there is a suggestion 33 hostages could be released in the first phase of a deal. What is confirmed? What is known? What are your sources telling you?
Good evening. Let's perhaps start with the end, what you mentioned, 33 hostages to be released. We need to be clear with the public, with our viewers, on this number of 33. Unlike the situation where we saw in the previous deal in November back in 2023, with the release of those hostages, when we speak about the number of 33, this time what Israel refers to as the humanitarian stage of the deal, this is a list that Israel compiled, made up of all the women in captivity, all the men over the age of 50, and many young hostages who are considered either very ill or seriously injured. Out of that list, Israel has no indication about the condition of these hostages, how many of them are actually alive. And this is to be clear, to this point, Hamas has not provided any list of the live hostages it is holding, nor did it make a specific one for this humanitarian list. And this is very important because when Israel asked for these 33, and our viewers and all of us would be hoping to see 33 Israeli hostages returning to their families, unfortunately, we need to be clear with our viewers that is not necessarily the situation when it comes to these 33 hostages. This is just the first phase of that deal. Israel has officially announced 36 out of the 98 to no longer be alive, but there are obviously concerns about many others. Hamas has randomly provided signs of life from various hostages, mainly some young ones, and we've seen that as part of this strategy of Hamas of trying to influence the public opinion here in Israel, especially when the talks were resuming in Qatar. We saw these videos coming up every Saturday night, basically for the past several weeks, as part of the strategy of Hamas to influence the Israeli public. But this deal, which would make many families in Israel very happy, would also come at very serious costs. The knowledge about those hostages who did not survive, let's remind our viewers, 1 year and 3 months in captivity. It will also come at the price of hundreds of Palestinian terrorists to be released from prisons, many of them also with blood on their hands. Israeli officials that I spoke to this evening said those who have blood on their hands will be deported to a third country, not to the West Bank, so they wouldn't be able to pose an immediate threat to the people of Israel. Nonetheless, these are very dangerous people that will be out and free once this deal is signed. We're talking about a deal that would last 42 days, with the first hostage to be released on the first day and the last hostage to be released on the last day of this deal, when during those 42 days, Israel and Hamas will begin the negotiations for the next stages of the deal that would see perhaps an end to the war altogether and the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces. Right now, we need to be clear, this is not the situation. We're speaking about a ceasefire, a 42-day ceasefire, under which some Israeli hostages will be released. 33 is the number that is given, but that would depend on their situation. And the number of Palestinian terrorists who will be released is also dependent on that number, because they vary on the number of, they depend on the number of live Israeli hostages to be released.
And what kinds of security arrangements does Israel need to agree to in terms of guarantees, in terms of this deal? Obviously, varying reports about what is being discussed right now. We know there's pressure from the US, the new administration. There's military pressure inside Gaza as well, not to mention internal pressure for Hamas to get to a deal.
Let's start with the facts. The fact is that in many areas in Gaza, Hamas is still very much alive, still very much in power. And very sadly for us here in Israel, we see still many casualties to the IDF forces fighting, mainly in northern Gaza these days, to show you that Hamas is still very much active and still very much dangerous. Now, it's dangerous now to the soldiers who are inside Gaza. Next thing they will do is being dangerous to the Israelis living on the border, because this is the mentality and this is the way Hamas operates. Hamas is not going to change its ideology. The ideology of Hamas is to destroy Israel and kill the Jews. This is what we saw, sadly, on October 7th. So as for Israel's security, Israel wants to promise some security arrangements. This would be, first of all, a parameter around the Gaza Strip, about a kilometer in wide, that would enable some sort of a zone between the Israeli kibbutzes, the Israeli communities, and those residents of Gaza. Israel will maintain some presence in the Philadelphia corridor, that is the part that divides Gaza and Egypt. This is where Hamas got almost all of its weapons throughout so many years, that has been used both on October 7th and for many years of many dozens of thousands of rockets being fired at the Israeli public. And another point of concern when we mentioned the north is the return of more terrorists to the northern part of Gaza, where Israel is now divided Gaza into two. Israel says it will ensure that those Gazans who are unable to return back to their homes will go through some security checks, so that we will not see any more terrorists with weapons that will be able to, again, be just a mile away from Israeli homes.